What's up, BookTube? It's Monty, and today I am back again, once again, to discuss some things with you. I said I was going to make this video like a month ago at this point. It feels like forever. But clearly, I never made that video, so here we are. I'm making it today, and we're going to talk about Shadow and Bone. I know that I missed the wave where everyone was like reacting to the first episode, reacting to the finale, doing episodic breakdowns, but here we are. We're doing it anyway, like why not? So I think that I have some notes. I did attempt to like rewatch and things so I could like make this worth somebody's time. If you just want my quick soundbite version, I don't think that Shadow and Bone is the adaptation pinnacle that people are like painting it out to be. And here's why. The thing that really just collapses everything is the addition of the crows. Now, I understand that people love the crows. I understand that there is some like show crow, book crow, infight. I don't know them. Okay, I only ever read Shadow and Bone. So, like, and when I say that, I really just mean, like, the first book, not the whole series. Because I think that Kaz, Inej, and Jesper were all, I don't want to say, like, horrible additions, because I'm sure that those characters are fine. But as they were here, as they were presented in this medium, it does confuse me a little as to why the people love them so much when I kind of thought they were the worst actors. Like, maybe it's just Amita. People seem to love her on social media, on the timeline. Girl had like two facial expressions and nothing, like beautiful gowns, just beautiful gowns. Like beautiful person. Could definitely be a but it was giving me very Tyra Banks tries to act. I also thought that Inej's storyline of her being this super religious person and not wanting to kill, and then like literally 3 seconds into, like, I know that her and Kaz are supposed to have like this deep connection or whatever, and like they're important to one another. That's like it is implied in the show, but sis went from I'm never gonna kill to killing somebody in like 3 seconds, and for me the journey wasn't there, especially because the woman, she cannot act. Just horrible acting. Top to bottom. Of the crows, I think that Jesper was like fine. I did not care about his guns. I didn't care about his little quips, but like he was serviceable. Perfectly, you know, normal person. I do think that Freddie was probably like the better actor of the three, but apparently this Kaz is nothing like Kaz is supposed to be. And then when he was doing what like Kaz was supposed to do, like in the scene at the little palace where he was beating up the heart, I think he was a heartrender, right? That was probably his worst performance, like the worst moment that he had. So even he was all over the place. So for me, overall, the crows were horrible. Then you have the situation of Nina and Matthias. And I think that Nina and Matthias' storyline, along with the introduction of Alina being an Asian character, that's really, I think, the unraveling of this world. So let's talk about the racism and how this, you can tell that they went really in on the racism, like the writers in the writers' room. They were really aggressive with the racist attacks against Alina. It was, I think some of those, the writers might be a little bit racist. Like, it was a little too aggressive. But here, my main issue is that racism and the sort of impacts that people's race seems to have on them is definitely not at all equal. The only other person that we really see, I mean, Zoya makes a quip about Inej being Suli, which is odd because she's also Suli, or she has Suli characteristics, and she is defensive when someone assumes that she is. So that one moment with Inej, but the only other person is like sustained, and I say sustained because in the flashbacks, he's like, and if there's a Mal flashback, that orphan bully is calling him a mutt, a half-breed, which again is odd It's very odd. Those are the only two, like those are the three other encounters aside from Melina, who's just like every time she's on screen, racism. And yet we clearly see that there are dark-skinned black people that exist in this world and they are accepted as Ravkin, when the sort of, I guess, default, the standard seems to be just a very generic white person face, like a Benton Barnes, or even the guy who plays Matthias could easily be Ravkin instead of Fjerdan. But like, Ravka seems to have all kinds of different racial makeups, and so the idea that we're going to be racist to Alina because she's Shu, but then it wasn't even because she was Shu, it was because we're at war with the Shu, but you very clearly are not going to be like racist against the Fjerdans, who are the only actual people that we see who we know are engaged with this war. Although the show also, again, it says we're at war with the Fjerdans and we're at war with the Shu. What this war is over, no clue, no idea. It's fantasy. There's a war. But how are you going to be racist against the Fjerdans if you cannot tell them apart from your standard Ravkin? So the idea, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, the whole they're at war justification is out the window. So it's very clearly because she has Shu Asian characteristics. And so again, it was very in your face, it was very blunt, and it just was like not well integrated into the overall mythos when you then layer in the idea of the Grisha. And the show didn't really seem to know what to do with the Grisha, because we very clearly had scenes with the orphanage and they were very much idolizing the Grisha, and then we had scenes with the Darkling, Mr. Ben Barnes out here, who was very clearly being persecuted because he was Grisha, and then the Fjerdans are like, witchcraft, we're gonna kill you. Like, all of it was just disjointed, and it didn't seem to create any kind of... I'm gonna give the Grisha fault to Miss Bardugo. I don't think that's ever made sense to me. Like, to me, that's just fantasy racism, and fantasy racism is always gonna fall apart like that. But that was... it didn't make any sense. And then what also continues to not make sense is the introduction of Nina and Matthias in the storyline. Again, I have not read Six of Crows. From what I have pieced together, that is kind of like their backstory that you get in flashbacks, which, fine, include it here if you wanted. But I think that if the attempt of Shadow and Bone was to humanize Matthias, to make me understand Matthias going from this person who wanted to kill the Grisha to, like, in love with the Grisha, that's the whole sequence of events makes absolutely no sense. First of all, you had the Fjerdans in Ravkin territory talking about, we're gonna kidnap you so we can take you to a trial, and you want me to believe that Matthias doesn't understand how this doesn't make sense. Like, the man might be an idiot, but nobody's that big of an idiot. It doesn't even make sense unless you are going to be like, oh, this is actually disputed Fjerdan territory and like it's gone back and forth. Like, that literally doesn't make any sense because they were well into Ravka when they were kidnapping the Grisha. That whole story, like, again, he'd have to be an idiot. But then the show went out of their way to show us that there were two other Grisha in the bottom of that boat. And from the looks of the screen cap, they were both women of color. And so what happens is Matthias found the one Grisha that was also, well, not the one Grisha, but he falls for the one white Grisha that he had in his custody with the biggest boobs, who also didn't die in the shipwreck. So none of those things, like, came together to kind of make me understand why Nina was gonna fall in love with Matthias. And for a minute there, I thought we were just gonna have a storyline of Nina just using Matthias. Like, I understood in the books they had been a thing, but because we had already changed a lot, like, we had the other set of, we had half of the Crows helping with the whole Alina storyline, like, the books didn't seem to matter to me. So for me, it was more along the lines of, at this point in the story, we're seeing Nina and Matthias, like, Nina using Matthias so she doesn't die, because that did make sense to me. You know, otherwise she would have died in the ocean, and I didn't want her to die, so, like, that was fine. But her side was, it didn't make any sense either. So between the fantasy racism that didn't make sense, the weird romance that didn't make sense, this war that wasn't a war that didn't make sense, the introduction to the Crows, which were, like, in my opinion, because, like, one of them was so bad as an actor, like, the whole set had to be tossed out as far as I was concerned. But also, like, they did not need to be included here. Nothing that they did was important, I think. Like, we could have saved those three for a later date, and if you wanted to introduce... if they wanted to introduce them, I would have almost been okay. Well, I don't know. I liked Nina and Matthias and how they were, like that was fine, but there were times where they were trying to balance the 3 storylines where it definitely did not work. I also don't really think the Darkling's his girlfriend, wife, partner person got murdered. That was stupid to me. Him surviving the Shadowfold was not surprising because, again, like, I knew that it was like a trilogy of books, and I'm going to assume that Netflix isn't going to end this anytime soon. Although I do hope that season 2 has better special effects, because I did think that it was almost ridiculous how they always needed to use the Darkling to give us Alina's powers. Maybe that's how it was in the book, I don't really remember, but like I think that you can have the sun and you can demonstrate what she is doing in a well-lit environment, and it felt more like this is a budgetary reason. A lot of her powers, especially like when it was on other people's faces, that felt like it was a very practical effect, and it wasn't even like enhanced well. The color of the light seemed to be changing. Sometimes it was a more warm tone, sometimes it was more cool tone. It didn't seem to have any kind of consistency or any reasoning for why the shift of the tones was there. And sometimes when we did see it, it wasn't that great. I do think that the best use of her power was in the demonstration where Inej sees her in the little palace where she like breaks the ball into 2. I think they spent the most money there, but everywhere else it was kind of, it didn't really exist. And I do think that even sometimes like Ben Barnes's powers felt a little bit cheap. It just like, I don't think the budget was there all of the way that I would have wanted it to be. So that's where I ultimately landed on Shadow and Bone. Did I enjoy it? Yes. I thought that, you know, Alina and Mal had a great storyline. Although I did get tired of seeing that goddamn meadow. I hope I don't have to see it in season 2. I think that a lot of like the world building choices, I don't know if they really hold up to repeat viewing to try and like to see how things make sense, which is why I ultimately abandoned my rewatch, because at that point I was just picking things apart to pick things apart, and it was no longer enjoyable. So that was that. Like I said, The Crows, maybe season 2 will change my mind, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Because I also don't really think, I don't know how they're, like, at this point you can't get rid of the Crows. They've been here for too long, but I also have no idea how they're going to use the Crows. So I don't know what the point of them going on their separate ways at the end of this book, or at the end of this season was. But if you made it into this video, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully editing Monty made this a thing that you could actually sit through and enjoy. But if you did make it to the end, let's drop this emoji down in the comment section below. Hopefully you'll have had enough time to watch so you can discuss with me down in the comment section what worked for you, what didn't work for you. And I'll see you guys again soon with another video. But until then, and until next time, bye.